네, 안녕하십니까. 경호 시도인 연습 143일차 시작하겠습니다. 먼저 오바마 영상 한번 따라해 보겠습니다. But at the end of the day, the circumstances of your life, where you come from, what you look like, how much money you have, what you are going on at home, none of them is an excuse. There is no excuse for not trying. I've given a lot of speeches about education. I've talked about responsibility a lot. I've talked about teachers' responsibility for inspiring students, pushing you to learn. I've talked about parents' responsibility for making sure you stay on track and your homework done. You get your homework done and don't spend every waking hour in front of the TV or with the Xbox. I've talked a lot about our government uh, responsibility for setting high standards and supporting teachers, principals, and turning around that are working where the students that are where students are getting the opportunities that they deserve. But at the end of the day, you can have the most dedicated teachers, support parents, best schools in the world, but none of it will make a difference. None of it will matter unless all of you fulfill your responsibility, unless you show up to those schools, unless you pay attention to those teachers, unless you listen to your parents and grandparents and others, and you put in the hard work it takes to succeed. So what I want to focus on today, the responsibility each of you has, the responsibility for your education. I want to start. I want to start with the responsibility you have. You, every single one of you has something you're great. Every single one of you has something to offer. You have the responsibility to yourself to discover what there is. That's the opportunity education can provide. Maybe you could be a great writer. Maybe you're going to get enough to write a book or articles in newspaper. You might not know it. Maybe you could be an innovator or an inventor. Maybe even good enough to come up with the next iPhone or new medicine or vaccine. But you might not know it until you do a project for the science class. Maybe you could be a mayor or senator or Supreme Court justice. But you might not know that until you join the student government or debate team. No matter what you do with your life, I guarantee you need an education to do. You want to be a doctor, a teacher, or a police officer. You want to be a nurse, or an architect, or a lawyer, or a member of a military. Uh, you're gonna need a good education for every single one of those careers. You cannot drop out of school and just drop into a good job. You got to train for it, work for it, and learn for it. This isn't just important for your own life and your own future. You you make when you make up your education will decide nothing less than the future of this country. The future of America depends on you. Or you are learning what you are learning what you are learning in school today will determine whether we as a nation meet our greatest challenges in the future. You need a you need a knowledge and problem solving skills. You learn in science and math to cure diseases like cancer and AIDS and develop new energy technologies and protect our environment. You need insights and critical thinking skills you gain in history and social studies, with poverty, will poverty and homelessness, will fight poverty and homelessness,
discrimination, and make our
and
social studies to fight poverty and homelessness,
for poverty and homelessness,
crime and discrimination,
and crime and discrimination,
and make our nation more fair and more free.
and make our nation more free and more fair.
You'll need the
You need the creativity and ingenuity you
to
develop in your early classes to develop
companies.
to build new companies that will create new jobs and boost our economy.
One of you companies. They'll create new jobs and boost our economy.
We need every single one of you.
Talents and
We need every single one of you to develop your talents,
your skills and
your skills, and your
so
illness, so you can help us all folks solve
our most difficult
our
problem.
most difficult problem.
If you don't do that,
If you don't do that, if you quit on school,
you're not just quitting on
you're
yourself,
not just quitting on your you're not just quitting on yourself. You're quitting on your
I
country.
know it's not
I know
always
it's
easy
always
to
to
do
do
well
well
in
in school.
school. I know a lot of you have challenges
I know it's always to do well in school. I know it's
on your country. I know it's not always easy to do well in school.
I know it's always easy to do well in school.
I know a lot of you have challenges in your lives right now
I know a lot of you have challenges in your lives right now.
that can make it hard to focus on your schoolwork.
They can make it hard to focus on your schoolwork.
I get it.
I
I know
get
what
it.
it's like.
I know why it's
My
right.
father left
My father left my family when I was 2 years old.
raised by a single mom
I was raised by a single mom and who had to work, and we struggled at times, to pay the bills, and
things that other kids have.
wasn't always able to give us the things that other kids had.
There were
There were times when I missed
having a father in my life.
having a father in my life. There were times when I was alone. I feel like I didn't fit in. So I wasn't always focused as a so I wasn't always as focused as so I wasn't always as focused as I should have been at school.
And I did some things that I'm not proud of. And
I did some things that I'm not proud of.
in more trouble than I should have.
I got in more trouble than I should have.
And my life
In my life,
easily taken
it could have easily taken a turn for the
I
worse.
was lucky.
I was
I got a lot of
lucky.
second chances.
I got a lot of second chances.
I had the opportunity to go to college.
I had opportunity to go to college and law school, follow my dream.
My
My wife, First Lady Michelle Obama, she has similar stories. Neither of her parents had gone to
They
college,
didn't have a lot of money.
and they didn't have a lot of money. They worked hard, she worked hard.
She could go to the best
She could go to the
Some of they worked hard and
She
she
could.
worked hard
so that she could go to the, so that she could go to the work, so that she could go to the best schools in the world.
Some of you might not
Some of you might not
advantages.
have.
Maybe you don't have the best schools in this country. Some of you might not have those advantages. Maybe you don't
Some of you might not have those advantages. Maybe you
have
don't
those
have.
in your life who give you the support that
Maybe you don't have those in your life who give the support in your need.
maybe someone in
Maybe
your
s-
family has lost their job. There's not
Maybe someone in your family has lost their jobs,
enough money to
and
go around.
there's not enough money to go around. Maybe
You live in a neighborhood where you don't feel safe or have friends. There's not enough money to go around. Maybe you live in a neighborhood where you don't feel safe
you live in a neighborhood where you don't feel safe,
or have friends who are pressuring you to do
or
things
have friends who are pressuring you to do things,
you know aren't right.
you know are
But
right.
at the end of the day,
But at the end of the day, the circumstances of your life, what you look like, where you come from, how much money you have, what you got going on home, none of that is an excuse for neglecting your homework
having a bad attitude in school.
and having a bad attitude in school.
That's no excuse.
There's no excuse for talking back to talking back to your kid, talking back to your teacher,
class or
and-
dropping out of school.
and
That's no excuse for talking back to your teacher or cutting
there is no excuse for talking back to your teacher
class or
and cutting
dropping out of
class and dropping out of
There
school.
is no
There is
excuse
no excuse
for not
for
trying.
not trying.
Right now
You're-
doesn't have to determine
Where you are right now doesn't have to determine where you will end up. Where you are right now doesn't have to determine where you will end up.
no one's written your destiny for you.
No one's written your destiny for you.
Because here in America,
Because
you
here
write
in
your own
America,
destiny.
you write your own destiny.
You make your own future.
You make your own future.
That's what young people
And
like
that's
you
why young people like
are doing every day all across
that's what young people are doing every day oracles of America. Young people like Jasmine Perez from Loma, Texas. Jasmine didn't speak English when she first started school. Neither of her parents had gone to college. She worked hard and earned good grades, got a scholarship to Brown University, is now in graduate school, now in graduate school, studying public health, uh, and on her way to becoming Dr. Justin Perez. I'm thinking about Andoni Schultz from Los Altos, California, who's fought brain cancer since he was 3. She had to endure, she had to endure all sorts of treatments and surgeries, one of which affected his memory. So it took him much longer, hundreds of extra hours to do schoolwork. But he never fell behind. He's headed to college this fall. Then there's Chantel Steve, I, from my hometown of Chicago, Illinois. Even when bouncing from foster home to foster home, in the toughest neighborhood in the city, she managed to get a job at a local health care center, start a program to keep young people out of gangs, and she's on track to graduate high school with honors and going to college. Jasmine, Andoni, Chantel aren't any different from any of you. They face challenges. They face challenges. They face challenges in their lives just like you do. In some cases, they've got it they got it a lot worse off than many of you. But they refuse to give up. They chose to take responsibility for their lives, for their education, and set goals for themselves. And I expect all of you, and I expect all of you to do the same. That's why today I'm calling on each of you to set your own goals through education. Do everything you can to meet them. Do everything you can to meet them. Whatever you resolve to do, I want you to commit to it. I want you to you're working. But you get sometimes. I know that you. I know that sometimes you get the sense from the TV that you could be rich or successful without any hard work. Your ticket to success is through rapping or basketball or being a reality TV star. Chances are you're not gonna be any of those things. The truth is, being successful is hard. You won't love every subject. Love every subject. You won't love every subject that you study. You won't click. You won't click with every teacher. You won't click with every teacher you had. Not every homework assignment. Uh, assignment will seem completely relevant to your life. Will seem completely relevant. Will seem completely relevant to your life right this minute. You won't necessarily succeed it. You won't necessarily succeed at anything the first time you try. That's okay. Some of the most successful people in the world. That's okay. Some of the most successful in the world are the ones who've had most failures. Are the ones who had are the ones who've had who've had most failures. Some of the most successful people in the world are the ones who've had most failures. J.K. Rowling, who wrote Harry Potter. Her first Harry Potter book was rejected 12 times before it was finally published. Michael Jordan was cut from Michael Jordan was cut from his basketball his high school basketball team.
He lost
He
hundreds
lost
of games
hundreds
and
of
missed
games and
thousands of
missed
shots during his
thousands of
career. But
shots
he once said,
during his career.
I have
He once
failed
said,
over
I
and over
failed
and over
over
again
and
in
over
my
and
life.
over and
And that's
again
why
in
I
my life.
succeed. These
That's
people
why I
succeeded
succeed.
because they understood
These people succeed
that
because they
you can't let
understood
your failures
that
define you.
you can't
You
let
have to
you can't let your failures define you.
let
You
your
have to
failures
let them
teach you.
failures teach
You
you,
have to let them show you
and you
what
have
to
to
do
let them show
differently the
you.
next time. So if you get into trouble,
You,
teach you. You have to let them show you
you,
what to do
you have to let them show you
differently the next time. So failures teach you. You have to let them show you what to do differently the next time.
what to do differently next time. You have to let them show you. Uh, you have to
Failures teach you. You have to let them show you
you have to let them show you
what to do differently the next time.
what to do differently next time.
So if you get into trouble,
So if you get into trouble, if you get into trouble, if you get into trouble,
it doesn't mean you're a troublemaker.
it doesn't mean you're a troublemaker.
It means you need to try harder,
It means you need to try harder
to act right.
to act
If you
right.
get a bad grade, that doesn't mean you're stupid.
If you get a bad grade, it doesn't mean you're stupid.
Just means you
It
need to
just
spend
means
more time
it just
studying.
means you need more you need to spend more time studying.
No one's born
No
being
one's being good at
all
all
things.
things.
You
You
become
become
good at things through hard work.
you become good at things through hard work.
Not a varsity athlete the first
You're
time
not a
you play
versatile
this sport.
athlete. The first time you played a new sport,
You
you don't hit
every
every
note
note.
the
The
first
first
time
time
you
you
sing
sing
a
a
song.
song, you got to practice. The same principle applies to your school. You might have to do a math problem a few times before you get it right. You might have to read something a few times
Before you understand it.
before you understand. You definitely have to do a few drafts of papers before it's good enough to hand
Don't
it.
be afraid to ask questions.
Don't be
Don't
as,
be afraid
don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions.
to ask for help when you need it.
Don't be afraid to help. Ask for help when you need it.
I do that
I
every
do
day.
that every day.
Asking for help isn't a sign of weakness,
Asking for help isn't a sign of weakness.
it's a sign of strength.
Uh,
Because
it's a sign of strength.
you have the courage to
It
admit when
shows
you don't.
it shows you it shows you
Asking for help isn't a sign of weakness, it's a sign of strength. Because
asking for help isn't a sign of weakness. It's a sign of strength.
it shows you have the courage to admit when you don't
It,
know.
it shows you it shows
For
you
help isn't a sign of weakness, it's a sign of strength. Because it shows you have the courage to admit when you don't
it shows that it shows you have the courage. It shows you have the courage to admit it.
know something.
It shows you have the courage to admit when you don't know something,
And that then allows you to learn something new.
and that then allows you to learn something new.
So find an adult that you trust.
So
Parent,
find adult that you trust, a parent, a
teacher,
grandparent, a teacher, a coach, a counselor,
and ask them to help you stay on
and
track
ask them help you stay on track
to meet
to meet
your
your
goals.
goal.
Even when you're struggling, even when you're discouraged,
Even when you're struggling, even when you're discouraged,
you feel like other people have given up
when you feel like other people
on you.
giving up on you,
Ever
don't
give
ever
up on yourself.
give up on
Because
yourself.
when you give up
When you give
on yourself,
up on yourself, you give
the
up on
story
your
of
country.
America isn't about people who quit when things got
The
tough.
story of America isn't about people who quit when the things got tough, when things got tough, when things got tough, who quit when things got tough. The story of America, isn't about the story of America isn't about people who quit when things got tough.
It's about people who kept
It's
going,
about
who
it's
tried
about it's about people who keep going. It's about people who keep going,
harder, who loved
who
their
tried
country too
harder,
much
who love their country too much
to do anything less than their best. Who tried harder, who loved their country too much to do anything less than their best.
to do anything less than their best, and anything less than their best. Uh, who love who love their country too much to do everything less than their best.
The story of students who sat
The stories of students who sat
where
where
you
you
sit
sit
250 years
250 years
ago,
ago,
went on to wage a revolution,
and went on to wage a revolution,
and they founded this
and they
nation.
def-
Young people.
and they founded this nation, young people. students who said were lucid 75 years ago
and one
uh,
world war.
became overcame a
Students who
depression,
sat where you sit 75 years ago
so
overcame
overcame a
a
depression
depression and won a world war.
and won a world war,
Fought
fought
for
for
civil
civil
rights.
rights,
Put
put
man
man
on
on
the
the
moon.
moon.
Students who sat where you sit 20 years ago.
Students said were lucid 20 years ago
Who
who
founded
founded
Google,
Google,
Twitter,
Twitter,
Facebook.
Facebook.
They
They
changed
changed
the way we communicate with each other. So
they
today,
changed the way we communicate with each other.
I want to ask all of
So
you,
today
what's your
I want to ask all of you.
and change the way we communicate with each other. So today, I want to ask all of you,
Uh, so today I want to ask all of you,
what's your contribution going to be?
what's your contribution gonna be?
What problems are you going to solve?
What problems are you gonna solve?
Discoveries will you make?
What discoveries will you make?
I expect all of you
I expect all of you
to get serious this year.
to get serious this year.
I expect you to put your best effort into everything you do.
I expect you to I expect you to put your best effort through everything you do.
expect great things
Expect
from each of you.
the great things from each of you.
Don't let us down.
So don't let us
Let your
down.
family down.
Don't let us down. Uh, don't let your family down,
Your
your
country
country
down.
down.
Most
Most
of
of
all,
all,
don't let
don't
yourself
let yourself
down.
down.
Make us all proud.
Make yourself
Thank you very
proud.
much, everybody.
Thank
God
you.
bless you. God
Thank you
bless
very much, everybody. God bless. God bless you, man. 네, 잘 들었습니다. 네, 오늘 보니까 20분 정도 지금 걸리네요. 이게 정작 한 10분 정도 영상인데요. 네, 거의 들으면서 한 문장씩 듣고 따라했던 것 같고 조금 막히는 부분도 있었던 것 같습니다. 바로 듣고 바로 따라할 수 있는 부분도 있었고요. 그래서 내일은 조금 안 들리는 부분에 있어서 좀 더 집요하게 문장 연결해서 할 수 있도록 좀 더 긴 문장을 말할 수 있도록 한번 해보겠습니다. 네, 두 번째 영상은요. 이걸 한번 들어볼까요? 두 번째 영상이 네, How to have a good conversation이라는 TEDx 강의를 한번 보겠습니다. 이거는 자막을 이제 보고요. 보겠습니다. Alright, I wanna see a show of hands. Alright, I wanna see a. Alright, I wanna see a show of hands. How many of you have unfriended? How many of you have unfriended someone? Unfriended someone? How many of you have? How many of you have unfriended someone on Facebook because there's something? Because they said something. Because they said something offensive about politics, religion, childcare, food. And how many of you know at least one person that you avoid because you just don't want to talk to them, because you just don't want to talk to them. And how many of you at least one person that you avoid? How many of you know at least one person that you avoid because you just don't want to talk to them? And how many of you know at least one person that you avoid because you just want to talk to them? You just don't want to talk to them. You just don't want to talk to them. And all right, I want to see a I want to I want to see a show of hands. How many of you have unfriended on the Facebook because they say something offensive about politics, religion, and childcare or food? And how many of you know at least one person that you avoid because you just don't want to talk to them? 다시 한번 들어볼까요? 앞으로? How many of you have unfriended someone on Facebook because they said something offensive about because they said something offensive about politics or religion, childcare, food? And how many of you know at least one person that you avoid? And how many of you and how many of you know how many of you know at least one person that you avoid because you just don't want to talk to them because you just don't want to talk to them. How many of you know at least one person that you avoid because you just don't want to talk to them? You just don't want to talk to them. It used to be that in order to it used to be that it used to be that in order to have a polite conversation, it used to be that have in order to have polite conversation, it used to be that in order to have a polite conversation, we just had we just, we just had 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 a we just had a we just had to follow the advice of Howard Higgins. My my fair ready stick to the weather and your house. It used to be that in order to have a conversation. It used to be that in order to in order to in order to have a polite conversation. In order in order to have in in order in order to have in order to have a polite conversation. You and in used to be that in order to have a polite conversation. We just had to follow my we just follow my we just had to we just had to follow the advice. We just had to follow the advice of how it's in my fair lady. Stick to the weather and your house. But these days with climate change and anti-vaccine, those subjects are not safe either. So this world that we live in, this world in which every conversation has the potential to devolve into an argument, has the potential to develop, has the potential to has the has the potential to devolve into an argument, has the potential to devolve into an argument, has the potential to devolve into an argument, where our politicians can speak to one another, where even the most trivial and where even the most trivial of issues, even the most trivial of issues, where even the most trivial issues, even the most trivial of issues, and where even the most trivial of issues, where even the most trivial of issues have someone fighting both passionately for it and against it. It's not normal. Pew Research did a study of 10,000 American citizens, and they found that at this moment we're more polarized, we're more divided than we ever have been in history. We're less likely to compromise. We're less likely to compromise. We're less likely to compromise, which means we're not listening to each other, which means we're not listening to each other, which means we're not listening to each other. Yeah, and we make decisions about where to live, who to marry, and even who our friends are gonna be, who our friends are gonna be, who our friends are gonna be, based on what we already believe, based on what we already believe, based on what we already believe. Okay, that means we're not listening to each other. Again, that means we're not listening. Again, that means we're not listening to each other. A conversation requires a balance between talking and listening. And somewhere along the way, somewhere along the way, we lost the balance. We lost that balance. We lost that balance. And somewhere along the way, we lost that balance. Now, part of this, Now, part of that is due to technology, due to technology. Now, part of that is due to technology. Now, part of that is due to technology. The smartphones that you all either have in your hand or either have in your hand, the smartphones that you all either have in your or either have it in your hands, the smartphones that you all either have in your hands, the smartphones that you all either have in your hands are close enough that you could grab them really quickly, or close enough that and close enough that you could grab them really quickly. You grab them really quickly. You could grab them really quickly. So or close enough that you could grab them really quickly. You could grab them really quickly. Or close enough that you could grab them really quickly. Uh, According to Pew Research, about a third of American teenagers send more than 100 texts a day, and many of them, almost most of them, are more likely to text their friends than they are to talk them face to face. There's this great piece in Atlantic. It was written by a high school teacher. It was written by a high school teacher named Paul Brown, and he gave his kids, and he gave his kids a communication project. He wanted to teach them how to speak on a specific subject without using notes. And he said this: I came to I came to realize that conversation and competence might be the single most overlooked skill we fail to teach. Kids spend hours each day engaging with ideas and each other through schools, but rarely do they have an opportunity to hone their interpersonal communication skills. It might sound like a funny question. It might sound like a funny question. It might sound a funny question. It might sound like a funny question. It might sound like a funny question. It might sound like a it might sound like a funny question. It might sound like a funny question. It might sound like a it might sound like a funny question. But we have to ask ourselves. But we have to ask ourselves. But we have to ask ourselves. It might sound like a funny question, so we have to, but we have to ask ourselves. It sound, it might sound like a funny questions. We have to ask ourselves: Is there any, is there any 21st century skills? Is there any 21st century skills? Is there any 21st century skills? Then being able to sustain, then being able to sustain, then being able to sustain more important, then being able to sustain more important, then being able to sustain coherent, confident conversation. Now I make like now I make my living talking to people. Now I make my living now I make my living talking to people. Now I make my now I make my living talking to people. Now I make my living. Now I make my now I make my now I make my living talking to people. Nobel Prize winners, truck drivers, billionaires, kindergarten teachers, heads of state, plumbers. I talk to people that I like. I talk to people that I don't like. I talk to people that I like. I talk to people that I don't like. I talk to some people that I disagree with deeply on a personal level. I talk to some people that I disagree with deeply on a personal level. I talk to some people, I talk to some people that I disagree with deeply on a personal level, I talk to some people, I talk to some people that I disagree with deeply on a personal level, but I still have a great conversation with them. but but I have a, but I still have a great conversation. But I still have a great conversation with them. So I like to spend the next 10 minutes. So I like to spend the next 10 minutes. So I like, so I like to spend the next 10 minutes also teaching you how to talk and how to listen. Many of you have already heard a lot of advice on this, or a lot of advice, or a lot of advice. Many of you have already heard a lot of advice on this. Things like look the person in the eye, look the person in the eye, look the person in the eye, think of interesting topics, think of interesting topics, think of interesting topics to discuss in advance. Look at nod and smile to show that you're paying attention. Look, nod and smile to, to show that you're paying attention. 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 Look, nod and smile to show that you're paying attention. Repeat back. Repeat back what you just heard. Repeat back what you just heard. You repeat back. Repeat back what you just heard. Just heard. What you just heard. What you just heard. Repeat back what you just heard. Or repeat back what you just heard. Or summarize it. So I want you to forget. So I want you to want you to forget. So I want you to forget all of it. So I want you to forget all of it. It is crap. Crap. There is no reason to learn how to show your paying attention if you are in fact paying attention. Now, I actually use the exact same skills as a professional interviewer that I do in that I do in regular life. That I do in regular life. That I do in regular life. So I'm I'm gonna teach you how to interview people, and that's actually gonna help you learn how to be better conversationalist. Learn to have a conversation. Learn to have a conversation without wasting your time, without getting bored, and please God, without offending anybody. We all have really cool conversations. We had them before we know what it's like. We had them before we know what it's like. We had them before we know what it's like. We had them before we know what it's like. The kind of conversation where you walk away feeling engaged and inspired, or where you feel like you made a real connection, or you've been perfectly understood. There is no reason why most of your interactions can't be like this. So I have 10,000 rules. I'm gonna walk you, I'm gonna walk you through all of them. I'm gonna walk you through all of them. I'm gonna walk you through all of them. Walk you through all of them. Walk through. Walk through. I'm gonna walk through. Walk you through. I'm gonna walk you through all of them. But honestly, if you just choose one of them, if you just choose one of them, if you just choose one of them and master it, you're already enjoying better conversations. You're already enjoy you're already enjoy better conversations. You're already enjoy better conversations. Number one, don't multitask. And I don't and I don't mean just sit down. 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 And I don't mean just sit down your cell phone or your tablet or your car keys or whatever it is. Be in that moment. Don't be thinking about your arguments you had with your boss, arguments you had with your boss, arguments you had with your boss, arguments you had with your boss. Don't be, don't think about what you what you're gonna have for what you're gonna have for dinner. You're gonna have for dinner. Don't think about what you're gonna have for dinner. Don't think about what you're gonna have for dinner. If you if you want to get out the conversation, get out the conversation. If you want to get out the conversation, get out the conversation. Don't be half in it and half out of it. Number two, don't pontificate. If you want to, if you want to state your opinion without any opportunity for response or arguments or pushback or gloss, write a blog. Now, there's a really good reason why I don't allow pundits on my show because they're really boring. If they're conservative, if they're conservative, they're gonna hate Obama. If they're conservative, they're gonna they're gonna hate Obama. They're gonna hate Obama. If they're conservative, uh, they're gonna hate Obama. And, and food stamps and abortion, food stamps, food stamps, food stamps. Con- if you're conservative, you're gonna hate you. You're gonna hate Obama and food stamps, food stamps, abortion, 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 food stamps and abortion. If they're river, if they're river, if they're river, if they're river, they're gonna hate big banks and oil corporations and big chain. Big banks, big banks, big banks, big bank, oil corporation, oil corporation, and big chain, big chain, big chain, big chain, big chain. Okay. Totally predictable. You don't want to be like that. Want to be like that. You don't want to be like that. You don't want to be like that. You don't want to be like that. You need to enter. You need to enter every conversation assuming that you have something to learn. The famed therapist M. Scott Peck said that true listening requires a setting aside of oneself. And sometimes that means setting aside your personal opinion. He said that sensing this acceptance, the speaker will become less and less vulnerable, more and more likely to open up the inner recesses of his or her mind, of his or her mind to the listener. Again, assume that you have something to learn. Good night. Everyone you will ever meet knows something that you don't. I put it this way: everybody is an expert in something. Number three, use open-ended questions. Use open-ended questions. In this case, take a cue from journalists. Start your questions with who, what, when, where, why, or how. If you put in a complicated question, you're gonna get it. You're gonna get a simple answer out. If you put in a complicated question, you're gonna get a simple answer out. If I ask you, were you terrified? You're gonna respond to the most word, powerful word in the sentence, which is terrified. And the answer is yes I was or no I was. Yes I was or yes I was or no I was. No I was. Yes I was or no I was. Were you angry? Yes I was very angry. Let them describe it. They are the ones that know. They are the ones that know. Try asking mm, try asking them things like try ask them try asking them things like what was that like? How did that feel? How did that feel? How did that feel? How did that feel? Because then they might have to stop for a moment. Stop for a moment. Because then they might have to stop for a moment. Because then they might have to stop for a moment. Stop for a moment. Because then they might have to stop for a moment. Because then they might to because then they might have to stop for a moment and think about it. And you're gonna get a a much more interesting response. Number four, go with the flow. That means thoughts will come to your mind and you need to let them go out of your mind. With hard interviews often, when you suggest is talking for several minutes and then the host comes back in and asks a question which seems like it comes out of nowhere or is already been answered, that means the host probably stopped listening 2 minutes ago because because he thought of this really clever question and he was just bound and determined to say that. And we do the exact same thing. We're sitting there having a conversation with someone and someone and then we remember that time that we met Hugh Jackman in a coffee shop and we stopped listening. We're just waiting for a moment to interject our story about Hugh Jackman and coffee. Stories and ideas, gonna come to you. You need to let them come and let them go. Number five, if you don't know, say that you don't know. Now, people on the radio, especially on PR, are much more aware that they're they're going on the record, and so they are more careful, and so they are more careful, they are more careful, and so they are more careful about what they claim to be an expert in and what they claim to know for sure. Do that. Err on the side of caution. Talk should not be cheap. Number six, don't equate your experience with theirs. If they're talking about having, if they're talking about having lost a family member, having having lost a family member, if they're talking about having lost a family member, if they're talking about having lost a family member, don't start talking about the time. Don't start don't start talking about time. You lost a family member. Don't start talking about time. Don't start talking about time. When talking about time, don't start talking about time. Don't start talking about time. You lost a family member. You lost a family member. The time you lost a family member. Don't start talking about time. Don't start don't start talking about time. You lost a family member. If they're talking about the trouble, if they're if they're if they're talking about the trouble, if they're talking about trouble, if they're talking about the trouble they're having at work, they're having at work, they're having at work. If they're talking about trouble they're having at work, don't tell them about, don't tell them about, don't tell them about, don't tell them about how much you had your job. It's not the same. It is never the same. All experiences are individual, and more importantly, it is not about you. You don't need you don't need to take the moment. You don't need to take the moment. You don't need to take the you don't need to you don't need to take the moment. You don't need to you don't need to take the moment. Don't need to take the moment to prove how amazing you are or how much you've suffered. Somebody asked somebody asked us somebody asked Stephen Hawking once what his IQ was what his IQ was and he said, I have no idea. People who brag about their IQ, people who brag about brag about their IQs are losers. IQs are losers. Conversations are not a promotion opportunity. Are not a promotional opportunity. Conversations are not a promotional opportunity. Number seven. Number seven. Try not to re- try not to try not to re- try not to repeat yourself. Try not to repeat yourself. Try not to repeat yourself. It's condescending. 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 Try not to repeat yourself. Try not to repeat yourself. It's condescending. It's condescending. It's condescending. It's condescending. And it's really good. And we tend to do it a lot. Especially in work conversations or conversations with our kids. We have a point to make. We have a point to make. We have a point to make. So we just keep rephrasing it over and over. Don't do that. Number eight. Stay out of the weeds. Stay out of the weeds. Stay out of the weeds. Frankly, people don't care about the years, the names, the dates, all those details that you're struggling to come up with in your mind. They don't care. What they care about is you. They care about what you like, what you have in common. So forget the details. Leave them out. Number nine. This is not the last one, but is the most important one. Listen. I cannot tell you how many really important people have said that listening is perhaps the number one most important skill that you could develop, that you could develop. Buddha said, and I paraphrasing, if your mouth is open, you're not lying. And Calvin Coolidge said, no man ever listened no man ever listed his way out of the job, way out of the job, way out of the job, way out of the, way out of the job, way out of the, way out of. Let's see. Way out of the job. No man ever listened his way out of the job. His way out of the job. One was listened one's way out, his way out of the job. Way out of the job. Why do we not listen to each other? Number one, we'd rather talk. 네, 오늘 여기까지 하겠습니다. 감사합니다.